Your 401k has never looked better, and your bank account has never looked worse. How is that even possible? Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Thomas Paul, and today we're going to talk about the very weird possibility that while everybody's trying to fix the fallout from 2020, we might actually be building the next big bubble for 2026. Stocks near highs, AI stocks going parabolic, Bitcoin and crypto back with million-dollar dreams, housing prices refusing to come down, and yet rent, groceries, student loans, credit cards, all screaming, "You are poor." So the core question for this episode, are we quietly setting up a 2026-style mega bubble while most people feel broke in a rich market? Let's start with the paradox you're probably living in right now. On the one hand, markets are hovering near highs. In that Fed, inflation, and AI episode we did, we talked about how optimism around lower inflation and future rate cuts has pushed stocks up, especially big tech and AI names. Headlines sound great: soft landing, new bull market, AI revolution. On the other hand, your paycheck has to fight rent increases, grocery bills that feel like robbery, and monthly payments on anything with an interest rate. You don't feel richer, you feel squeezed. And here's the twist: that tension, market screaming everything's fine while your wallet says absolutely not, is exactly how you can build a bubble without people even realizing it. Because people start looking for escape hatches. We'll hit stocks and AI, housing, and crypto, and then run through a few realistic 2026 scenarios. And no, this is not a prediction video. It's a "Are we setting the stage for something obvious in hindsight?" video. Let's talk about the stock market versus your actual life. When you hear markets near all-time highs, you might picture this broad-based boom where everyone's winning. Reality check. As we've covered on the channel, a giant chunk of index performance is being driven by a small group of mega-cap tech and AI companies. So the index looks amazing. Your S&P chart is up and to the right. But under the hood, a lot of regular companies are not living that dream. And a lot of regular people definitely aren't. Think about your real-world budget. Rent has gone up, insurance has gone up, groceries still feel elevated even if the official inflation rate has come down. For a lot of people, wage gains have not kept up with the cost of staying alive in a major U.S. city. Then toss in student loan payments resuming after the pandemic pause. Add credit card balances that got bigger when everything got more expensive, and those balances are now sitting at interest rates that look like something out of a loan shark movie. So when you see the Dow or the S&P cruising near highs but your paycheck gets vacuumed out of your account 3 days after payday, you feel that disconnect in your bones. And here's where it gets interesting. When index performance is dominated by a handful of winners, it creates this illusion that the whole economy is healthier than it feels on the ground. That illusion is catnip for bubble behavior. Let's connect that to inflation and interest rates, because that's the fuel line running into all of this. In that Fed and inflation video, we talked about how the narrative shifted. Inflation peaked, then gradually moved down. It's still not back to normal in everyone's mind, but the direction changed. Once that happened, markets locked onto one idea. Okay, rate cuts are coming. The mere hope of lower rates is enough to pump asset prices. Growth stocks, AI names, speculative tech, they all respond like kids to free candy. Same story in housing and crypto. But here's the problem. Lower inflation headlines do not automatically fix affordability. They just mean prices aren't rising as fast. You're still stuck with the new higher price level. That $2,000 rent doesn't say "my bad" and drop back to $2,500. So what you get is this wealth illusion. On paper, your 401k balance might be higher. The estimated value of your home on Zillow is up. Maybe your Robinhood account has some surprisingly green numbers in it, but your cash flow is tight, and you don't pay rent with your 401k statement. You pay with actual dollars that have to show up every 2 weeks. That tension, assets up, cash flow strained, is a side effect of the cheap money era we talked about in earlier episodes. Years of ultra-low rates inflated asset prices. Then rates jumped, but the system doesn't reset instantly. So we've got this hangover period where valuations are still rich, but the cost of living and the cost of debt are both high, which brings us to the most emotional asset of all, housing. This is the part that really feels rigged if you're under 40. We've got a weird split right now. On one side, homeowners who locked in 2 to 3% mortgage rates during the cheap money years. They're sitting on low payments and in a lot of markets, big home price gains. Selling would mean giving up that low rate and jumping into a 6 to 7% mortgage on a more expensive house. So, they're not selling. On the other side, you've got renters trying to buy their first place. Inventory is tight because nobody wants to give up their golden handcuff mortgage. Prices are still high because there aren't enough homes on the market. And the mortgages you can get today are way more expensive than what your parents got 10 years ago. So you end up in this "how is this even possible" situation. Mortgage rates are higher, but home prices don't crash. Instead, transaction volume dies, inventory stays low, and first-time buyers are completely shut out. If you're a younger buyer, that doesn't feel like the business cycle. It feels like the game is rigged. And when a generation feels locked out of home ownership, that doesn't just show up in the housing market. It shows up in politics. It shows up in how people vote, what policies they demand, and how much risk they're willing to take to try to catch up. Fast forward to 2026. You've got a big cohort of people who feel permanently behind, watching asset owners get richer on paper while they rent forever. That's fertile ground for both political volatility and market volatility. Now let's talk about the escape hatches, AI stocks and crypto. Because if you feel like the traditional path, work hard, save, buy a house, is blocked, what do? You go hunting for a cheat code. In our AI and Bitcoin episodes, we walked through the mega bull narratives. On the AI side, this is the new internet. Every company will be an AI company. Productivity boom, trillions in value unlocked. On the Bitcoin side, digital gold, US crypto reserves, $1 million per coin. You'll be left behind if you don't own some. Both AI and crypto have something important in common. Real innovation mixed with massive speculative FOMO. There is real tech progress happening in AI. It's not fake. Companies are deploying models, automating tasks, building new products. Same with parts of the crypto ecosystem, real infrastructure, real use cases, institutional adoption. But mix that with people who feel like they're stuck on the wrong side of the wealth divide, and you create classic bubble conditions. You get the mindset of, "My paycheck will never get me ahead. I need a big win." So they pile into the hot narratives. AI stocks at nosebleed valuations, microcap AI plays with no profits, random coins promising the next 100x because institutions are coming. Real innovation plus desperate money plus easy narratives is textbook bubble fuel. We've seen this movie before. .com, housing, 2020 SPACs, and meme stocks. The twist this time is that the bubble candidates, AI and crypto, are sitting on top of an economy where a lot of people already feel fragile. So what does 2026 actually look like? Let's run through some scenarios. These are opinions, not predictions. Think of them as storyboards. Scenario 1. Soft landing, slow bleed. The economy muddles through. No big recession, just lowish growth. Inflation stays contained enough that the Fed can gradually cut rates, but not back to zero. AI and megacap tech growth continues, but the market starts to separate winners and losers. In this version, some of the high-flying names just deflate slowly. You don't get a dramatic crash, you get years of down 10%, up 5%, down 8%, while valuations grind back to reality. Investors who bought at peak FOMO feel stuck, but the system doesn't blow up. Emotionally, it feels like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Scenario 2, surprise shock. Inflation re-accelerates or a recession hits harder than expected. Maybe a geopolitical event. Maybe something breaks in credit markets. We talked in our How to Profit from a Crash episode about how fast things can move once fear hits. In that case, the same AI and crypto trades that looked invincible suddenly become the source of liquidity. People sell what they can, not what they want to. High valuation stories get hit first and hardest. Narratives flip from "this is the future" to "okay, but what are the actual earnings?" very, very quickly. Scenario 3, policy shock after an election. We covered in the Trump recession and crash video how political responses to a downturn or a market wobble can be, let's say, creative. New administration, new Congress, new fiscal policies, aggressive stimulus, new taxes, regulation on tech or crypto, housing subsidies, student loan changes, whatever. Markets react not just to earnings, but to shifting rule books. Any of those policy moves could either extend the party or pop the bubble, depending on timing and design. A big stimulus could send asset prices even higher. A clumsy policy change aimed at fixing housing or finance could unintentionally hit valuations. The key point: sentiment can flip incredibly fast when everyone is already stretched. If people feel one bad month away from financial chaos, they don't need much of a reason to panic. So where does that leave you, the person trying not to get wrecked? Let me be super clear. Nothing here is financial advice, but there are some basic principles that tend to age well in bubble-ish environments. First, be very careful with all-in bets on the hottest stories. Whether that's a single AI stock, a meme coin, or the assumption that home prices only go up. Concentrated bets can make you rich, but they're also how people blow up right before the music stops. Second, manage your debt. High-interest debt is the real villain in this story. If you're paying 20% on a credit card, that's a guaranteed negative return. You don't need a bubble to pop to be underwater. Your interest bill is already doing that. Third, think in time horizons. If your investment timeline is 10-20 years, short-term drawdowns are painful but survivable. If your timeline is, "I need this money for rent in 6 months," maybe don't park it in the most volatile assets on earth. Fourth, diversify. Not in the buzzword sense, but in the don't let one narrative decide your entire future sense. Own a mix of things. Don't let all your bets depend on AI working out perfectly, or Bitcoin going to $1 million, or rates dropping back to 0. And finally, don't confuse paper gains with spendable money. We talked about the wealth illusion. It feels good to see a higher number in your account, but until you actually take profits, that wealth is theoretical. Ask anyone who had millions in 2021 NFTs how that worked out. At a personal level, focusing on cash flow and resilience, your ability to pay your bills, handle surprises, and not panic sell at the worst possible moment will probably matter more than trying to catch every hype wave. Pulling it all together, markets today are acting like we're on a smooth glide path into 2026. AI will fix productivity, the Fed will thread the needle, soft landing achieved, everyone claps. But real life, for a lot of people, it's chaos. Wages feel small, rents feel huge, debt feels heavy, and the traditional path to wealth feels blocked. That disconnect is exactly what you often see right before or during a bubble. Markets pricing in a shiny, clean future, while people on the ground feel increasingly desperate, angry, or just exhausted. So I want to hear from you. Do you think we're early in a long, sustainable new bull market? Or are we late in a giant bubble that just doesn't realize it's a bubble yet? Drop your take in the comments, new bull run or late bubble, and tell me what you're seeing in your own life that makes you lean one way or the other. If you got value from this breakdown, hit subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up where we zoom in on either AI or crypto specifically and ask, okay, which one's the real bubble candidate for 2026? I'm Thomas Paul. This is the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one.